your hands together, please, for SUPERMAC, John Gibson, and Holly from NUFC Matters. Sharon Mike, sorry, so you'll get one off John after the end of whatever he's got to say. Okay, we're going to talk transfer window before we draw the raffle. What a contrast to last January, Malcolm. Essentially, Newcastle couldn't get Hamza Chowdhury across the line in January last year. Look at us this year. Newcastle active, one of the few teams buying players, and still business to be done tomorrow.
Absolutely, yes, there is more business to be done. And I think it's all very, very positive for us all. And I think it's going to finish up somewhere around the 100 million mark that will have been spent by the time the window closes tomorrow night. And hopefully that's enough to take us to safety.
John, on NUFC Matters, you and I sometimes clash heads with positions now, I think. Occasionally, yeah. Chris Wood, you know, he's been brought in. I feel it's a good acquisition. Yes, we've overpaid for him. You and I discussed this on NUFC Matters on Thursday night. I personally feel we still need somebody to score goals. What's your view?
Yeah, I think you're right, because Wood's not going to get a barrel load of goals. And he restricts the way you play. You wanted a striker in, and I think we could well still do that before tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. I wanted a centre-half in, and thank goodness at least there's a centre-half on his way up here as we speak. Dan Byrne, the Brighton centre-half who's from Blythe, was the big Alan Shearer fan, if you remember, in the old days. Stood on the terraces, marvelling at Shearer. Thank God he was on the terraces, because Shearer would run all over him if he'd been on the pitch. But because we're talking proper centre forwards with Shearer and the bloke next to me here. We're talking proper centre forwards. But what I like about the fact that Byrne's coming is that 3 of the 4 signings we have already, if you take Trippier, Wood, the Brazilian boy who has signed the contract in Brazil, the midfielder, and is coming over, and Byrne, is that 3 of them already established Premier League players. Trippier was, although he was at Atletico, he was established, and of course Wood from Burnley and this lad from Brighton. So they're not going to get surprised by what's coming. They already know what's coming. But I was desperate for a centre-half. And every time I thought we'd get away with it, I looked at Lascelles and decided we couldn't get away with it.
Holly, I'll come to you. John's touched on it. Bruno, I mean, that's a great signing. It's, you know, we're talking, would we get a marquee signing? Would we get somebody that would get the fans talking? That's certainly a big signing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a massive statement of intent from the new owners, I think. Very impressive going forward. Someone in that midfield that can totally diversify the team, and of course we've already seen the likes of Kieran Trippier, who I think was outstanding for us to get, considering the position we find ourselves in within the league. So to bring someone like Bruno in is just a dream come true, really, I think, for this window. You mentioned Trippier. Trippier's been in Saudi Arabia with the team. Our friend Al Walid, who's across in Saudi, tells us that Trippier spent a lot of that trip with Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall and not with the players. Does that tell us that this is a potential captain at Newcastle? Yeah, I think ever since Kieran Trippier walked in, we always thought he could be a potential captain. He's someone that shows great leadership qualities within that team. And I think for quite a few years now, Jamal Lascelles just hasn't stepped up to the mark. He's been struggling massively, and I don't think many people disagree with that. You don't see him commanding the defence as much as he should do. Trippier's already taken on that role to kind of sort out the defence. He's brilliant on the ball, but off the ball, I think he's second to none as well.
Yeah, what I've noticed about Trippier is that he not only moves players around with actions and his shouting and his calling, but I noticed that he then goes a little bit later and he goes and explains why he was giving somebody that particular instruction. So it's not just instruction only, it comes with a walking manual book. And And so I think that he's going to be so good for the side. And when you've got somebody like that, yes, I agree with you absolutely. He's got to be made captain. People will respect him. I don't think that the current captain is respected by the side because his performances just aren't good enough. And Shelby plays too much for himself. A captain's got to play for everybody.
The interesting thing with Trippier for me is that if you look at the window and the 4 guys we've got so far, Steve, Trippier is going to be the cheapest at 12 million because Burn is 13 and we go to 40 with the add-on for the Brazilian. The cheapest is Trippier, and I think he could well be the best. He is absolute quality, and if ever there's a leader, there's 2 reasons why Trippier should be captain. One is he's a born leader, and the second is Lascelles.
Exactly. Mal, I've got to ask you about Chris Wood. I mean, obviously you've seen him play for Burnley. He nearly came to Newcastle previously under Rafa Benitez, but Mike Ashley wouldn't spend the money. No surprise there. What's your view on Chris Wood and how he's going to fit into this jigsaw that is Newcastle United?
With difficulty, the way it is, I think that he absolutely needs somebody to play off him. He's more of a target man than anything else, and so play him as that. We're well into the second half of the season now, and he's been performing with Burnley. He was playing very much a one-up front role out on his own. It doesn't suit him. He's got 3 goals so far this season. That's not good enough. The only player at the moment in the club that could play with him is Dwight Gale, and I'd say put him in and let him play from knockdowns that would be creating. And then we might have a serious danger up front. At the moment, when you think that Newcastle, they won away for the first time at Leeds, and other than a shot from a free kick, there wasn't a serious effort at goal. You know, that's frightening. That really is frightening. And if you're going to win games, you have to put the opposition under threat. And Newcastle haven't been doing that enough. It needs diversity up front, and Newcastle haven't shown that. So I would be, if they don't buy somebody in by 11 o'clock tomorrow night, then I think they must play Dwight Gale. And Dwight Gale, you know, the last time that he started a game, he actually scored a terrific goal. Murphy whizzed a curling cross into the near post, and Dwight Gale got up brilliantly and headed it in, and all of a sudden we didn't see him again for a very, very long time. And so the one thing that Dwight Gale hasn't had the luxury of is actually playing off a big man. So give them a chance, see what they do.
Hopefully there'll be more money spent and another goal scorer will come in. What about outgoings, John? We've not really seen anything on that score. Do you expect anybody to leave in deadline day tomorrow?
Almost anybody could leave, couldn't they? The way they've been playing, we're not going to get decimated outside of possibly Sam Maximum, Callum Wilson, etc., etc. Yes, without a shadow of doubt, they've got to, because they've got to fill your places. I mean, people like Matty Longstaff would certainly go. I mean, I would advocate that Jeff Hendrick would go, but then I've got to ask you the question, who the hell would take him? Like, so I mean, you know, you can't just get rid of players because you want them to go. You've got to persuade some idiot that's blind, deaf and dumb that it would be a good idea.
Not a fan of Jeff Hendrick?
No,
I've seen him score.
Right? Nice, I've seen him score, and I think that's the only time. That's why I want him out, because I've seen him score. He ain't going to do it a second time. No, I don't think, you know, when you're putting building bricks in, I mean, this is a long-term project at Newcastle by the owners, and I feel very optimistic about the long-term future of Newcastle, which I never did under Mike Ashley. I think we've honestly got a chance to move on and actually win something. And I do believe that will happen. I For me, what I want to happen is I want the entertainers to come back with one proviso. I want the entertainers to come back with one proviso. We also win the championship, not finish second twice. But by Jove, wasn't that great? And when you look at that side, the guy that's coming on here later on, absolute quality. That's the sort of player, Peter Beardsley, that we have got to aim to get into this club, because he was quality. I remember when he come to join us as a little lad and player, KK had said that in his first season at Newcastle, he played with Wraith, who was very quick and was a good finisher, but he had a touch of a camel with cramp. And therefore we had to do something about that. And KK said to Arthur Cox, he said, I want somebody in where play to feet and he's naturally comfortable in that situation for what he is. And so for what he had to go, great shame in lots of ways, a great kid, could score goals, but wasn't going to take us to the next level. And who was brought in? Peter. And I remember KK saying to me when he went up the training ground, Coxie said to him, this is the guy that's going to be the absolute utopia of what you want, this little lad Peter Beardsley said. And obviously he hadn't heard of Peter at the time. He'd been playing out in Canada with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and he looked a little young lad and he thought, crikey, what have we got here? Then he saw him on the training ground and he knew exactly what he had here. And the three people we had up front with Keegan, Waddle and Beardsley that won his promotion was sensational. And Beardsley was so sensational that KK brought him back when KK came as a manager in the birth of the entertainers. And then bringing him back, he realised the age of Peter at the time. So he was on the phone to John Hall in the car park when he was going in to meet Peter. And he told John Hall that Peter was 3 years younger than he was, so there was no problem with his age. And he said, in desperation, I also told him, because there was a landline with John Hall on and Freddie Shepherd on, he said, and I told him that Sunderland had just come in for Peter. He said the deal was done at that moment, and that was it. And Beardsley was here. And by Jove, was that terrific for us. We want to get back to those days. I do think it's possible under the current situation, but first steps first. We've got to stay up. And you know what that is? Putting building blocks in. If you remember, with Kevin Keegan, he brought Killer Kill Klein. Did a brilliant job. Season and a half, that's the job that Dan Byrne will do. That's the job Wood will do. They're not the blokes that's going to take us to the Champions League. They're the blokes that's going to keep us afloat. Building blocks. You don't go from the bottom of the mountain to the top of Everest, you climb up. And this is what we're doing at the moment. If this is the most precarious part now, if this works and we stay up, we're going to be okay.
Great stuff, John. Passionate from the heart, as always. You mentioned Sunderland as well. It was good to see them finally get 6 in a row. 6 goals.
I loved it yesterday. I mean, honestly, I was depressed because I had no football to watch, and then I realised no football to watch meant Sunderland, and we're going to lose 6 now.
I think our new signing Bath let the plug out, didn't he?
Oh, I mean, it was. Excuse me, I don't want to smile. I've got a split lip. But I did enjoy yesterday. You know, 2 reasons. One was Sunderland losing 6-0, and the other was we didn't lose because we didn't play.
It's a win-win all round. Holly, goalkeepers. We've always had great keepers in my time as a football supporter, whether you go back to the 83-84 season that I started supporting, Kevin Corn, Martin Thomas. But you know, we've had Shea Given, we've had Steve Harper, Pavel Cernacek, Shaka Islam, the list's endless. We're strong in that department still. There's talk of Dean Henderson coming in this transfer window, albeit on loan. Would you like to see him come? Would you like to see a new goalkeeper?
Look, I think Martin Dubravka is certainly good enough to be the number 1 at Newcastle United. I think outside of the top 6, he's probably the best keeper within the Premier League. However, he has been more injury prone, especially this season, and I think the options of Darlow and Woodman on the bench just aren't good enough. So to bring in Henderson to have as a backup option, or even to take over that number 1 spot from Dubravka, because you've got to remember he is getting on a bit now, he's into his 30s, I think that's a great possibility for Newcastle.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. We're getting close to the main event, so let's just have a quick chat about Eddie Howe. He's been here a couple of months now. What's your view on him, Malcolm?
I think he's one of those guys who really gets to know quickly his players, and he is driven to improve his players, whereas I think the players have what they had to get used to under Steve Bruce was quite horrendous. And when you think that players went to the club pleading, we're not fit enough, we need to do more training, and Steve Bruce had everybody, including himself, in a 3-day week. It was quite ridiculous what he was doing. And so, Eddie Howe, I think he's had to understand what's gone before him, and that he's decided that it's got to take time. You can't just suddenly become fit like that. And so that it's a gradual progression that he's putting everybody through. Sooner or later, and I would imagine that by about mid-February, everybody should be absolutely flying. And with new signings in there, and then I think we're going to see the very best of Eddie Howe. I really do. I've got every faith in him, and I was... when we were looking for a manager, I actually had Eddie Howe in mind. My preference would have been Frank Lampard. Isn't it ironic that he's going to be the next opposing manager now that he's joined Everton? But no, I have every faith indeed in Howe. And just judging by the improvement that I've seen, and it's quite massive, the players are thoroughly enjoying themselves, and they're improving all the while. So, and because of that, with the signings that have been made, it's been hard work, a real hard slog for everybody at the club. But I think by 11 o'clock tomorrow night, when the window closes, I think we can all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. I think we're going to be fine. We're going to be okay.
John, I was taking over, from Steve Bruce, massive changes in the sense that Malcolm's already said at least they're training when they should be, instead of having days off. But there has been a massive turnaround in certain players. Joe Linton springs to mind. Nobody I knew amongst the fan base, home or away, rated Joe Linton at all. Biggest waste of money we've ever had, and he's turned into a different player now. And Shelvey, frustrating at times. Again at Leeds when we were down there last week, he was the best player on the pitch in midfield. So he's getting things done behind the scenes. What's your take on it?
He's very meticulous in the way he approaches the job. He is 26 hours a day guy, hands-on guy. Anybody that can do what he's done to Joe Linton gets my vote, man.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Joe Linton was possibly the worst number 9 I've seen in Newcastle United. And by the way, he keeps that title because he's not number 9 now. He is still the worst number 9 I've ever seen. But he is a very, very decent midfield player. And it's lovely to see because he's a nice kid. But we can't judge him on nice kids. Nice kids don't necessarily keep Newcastle in the Premier League. I don't care if anybody's a nasty so-and-so, as long as he's a great footballer. But it is nice to see a nice kid that wants to be successful doing what Joe Linton's doing now. And the change of position has been absolutely crucial. With him dropped back and seeing the game in front of him, instead of in the left area, he looks a quality player now. I would have made him the last person on my team sheet when he was number 9. I would make him one of the first people on my team sheet now. That's the change of Joe Linton. And that's terrific to see. as far as Eddie Howe's concerned, it's very interesting, isn't it? Malcolm touched on it because the two guys that were being bounced about in the public eye as possible Newcastle managers with Eddie was Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard. In the next two matches of Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard. Well, I wish them every bit of ill luck that's possible to come their way. Because I don't care about Aston Villa and I don't care about Everton. I care passionately about Newcastle. Eddie Howe's our man. Let's stick with Eddie Howe. Let's keep the faith. We're going to stay up.
Same question to you, Holly. Eddie Howe's come in. What's your take been on his first few months at the club?
I think it was a very sensible appointment. I think initially people were expecting a big name manager to come in. That was never going to happen, considering that they were going to be Steve Bruce's successor at the club and with all the problems that we had. I think he came in, he made an instant impact to the team's fitness. I think you could see that from the offset, the style of football he's played to be more entertaining to watch. Hasn't been a big improvement, but then again he's got the same squad and there's only so much you can do with such limited players, I think. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the second half of the window, and ultimately I think the fact that he's got them back into training every day, being a proper football manager, actually doing his job, makes all the difference. And I think, you know, I've got every faith that he's capable of keeping us up this season.
That's a hat trick of staying up, and I'll add to that, I think they'll stay up under Eddie Howe as well. Fantastic to hear the views. If you want to hear the views on a regular basis and you're not subscribed, go to NUFC Matters on YouTube, and you can see Malcolm and GIBBO together on a Thursday. It does get a bit heated, and there's a few laughs. And God bless Billy, who was Malcolm's dog, who we sadly lost this week. And obviously Holly and I do Sunday now as well. So get yourself on NUFC Matters, 7 shows a week. Always well worth subscribing to on YouTube. Put your hands together for Holly, John, and